Recording started.
Hey, it's Ryan with QLZ. We've got a pretty. There we go. We got Phil X. We've got a pretty busy week of interviews this week. The first guy we're chatting to, Phil X of Phil X and the Drills. How you doing, sir?
I'm awesome, man. How you doing?
Good. Now, you were a guy who you were just here less than probably like 6-7 months ago. You're part of the Illinois State Fair. You opened up for Motley Crue, so you're a little bit familiar with Springfield, dude. So getting to play those big fair shows, man, kind of how was that?
Yeah, the State Fair. That was amazing, man. They call up and said, "Hey, you guys want to open for Motley Crue?" And we're like, "What? Sure, yeah." But the show was amazing because I was being a side guy for so many years, being on the sidelines with in the supportive role of Bon Jovi, and then they go, "Yeah, you're gonna go play in front of 10,000 people that are only there to see Motley Crue," and you're like, "Oh, okay." But then that's with me, I've been playing my whole life, so you put a guitar in my hands and a mic in my face, and I'm ready to rock it. And once we had 10,000 people singing "I Wish My Beer Was As Cold As Your Heart," I had an idea that we were gonna do all right.
I know it's awesome, and you're back here. You're playing here in Springfield, at least on QLZ, at least on the station. We're excited to get you on Thursday morning. Track called "Fake the Day Away," and always like to get something about the song as well. Share it with our listeners on the air. Obviously, we post the interviews everywhere, but what would you like our listeners to know about this track? I mean, it's a ripper of a song, but what would you like our listeners to know
Thanks,
about it?
man. It's funny though, because you never know what it's going to be, right? There's so much energy on that track. It's so energetic that you wouldn't think it's about me missing being home. Like, the first lyric is I woke up to the captain's voice on a pimped out flying machine. So I was on the jet with Bon Jovi touring around. And one morning, I hear, "Hey, coming in for a landing" or whatever. And I wake up and I'm like, wow, man, I really miss my wife and kids right now. So it was a moment like that, but I get a little more poetic about it, and it can also be interpreted for different situations. But that was the one song where I actually wrote to a groove that Tommy Lee was doing in a drum solo in a YouTube video at a Motley Crue concert. And I thought, when I pitched the song to Tommy, who played drums on it, I wanted it to be meaningful. So I just I wrote the song to his groove. And then when I sent my voice and guitar to him, he kind of like just sampled it and slowed it down about 10 beats per minute. And he goes, "I love it. This is the tempo." And I'm like, awesome. And then when we went into the studio with Dan, my bass player, Daniel Spree, we were jamming the track, and Tommy was like, "Hey, can we slow it down a little more?" And we slowed it down 2 more times. So from the original idea, it's probably 14 beats per minute slower. And that's the tempo that you hear on the record, on the radio. That's the tempo, man. And I think he's all about getting people's heads bobbing. So he was on the right track. He was right. I was wrong.
But no, this record you got coming out, Pal Right and the Kisser, it's out a little more than 2 weeks from now, March 28th. It's going to be out. You've got a different drummer on every single track on the upcoming record. So first off, what was it like working with Tommy? And then second part of that would be, what kind of inspired you to be like, you know what, I want a different person behind the kit on every song? Because it's something that's unique, and I'm curious about.
Yeah, well, the Tommy thing was like I had played guitar on all the solo records, so we had already been in the studio a bunch of hours. And then when I was like, "Hey, man, want to play on my record?" he was like, "Yeah, of course." So I was just picking the song, and I think I picked the song for each drummer on this record, like the one for Tico Torres, the one for Liberty DeVito. Ray Luzier came in and played on the first single, "Don't Wake Up Dead." Jeremy Spencer from Five Finger Death Punch was the original drummer in the Drills. So for him, and then he moved on when he wanted to be like do metal again. So he went and formed Five Finger Death Punch, which worked out.
Yeah, a little bit.
And so I called him up and I go, "Dude, you got to play on a song on this record. You have to." And then he did. He played on the second single, "Moving to California." And for me, it goes back to when we first put the band together and Jeremy left. I felt like we had a different drummer every week, and because if you have a great drummer
Mhm.
being in Los Angeles, they play in like 5 to 10 bands. So I'd be like, "Hey man, we're playing at the Whiskey next Friday. Sorry, dude, got a gig. Hey, okay, down the list. Hey man, we're playing at the Whiskey
Mhm.
next Friday. Sorry, man, I just got booked on something else." I mean, it was almost impossible. So then we took the whole thing of having a different drummer almost at every show to having a different drummer on every song on this record,
Okay.
and the record before it too. Stupid Good Lookings also has 6 different drummers on it. So this is
Okay.
11 now. 11 drummers drumming.
You can create your own new Christmas tune with this one too. Any is that
Yeah,
gonna be the 12th one if you want to do the whole 12 days Christmas thing?
probably. You know,
You know, now I don't know if this is something that you would want to do or not, but you've done it with drummers. Is this something you want to be like? Do you want to have guest bassists on, or do you want to potentially have do a record moving forward? Obviously, you sing, you play guitar on it. Are you like, man, maybe I'll just play guitar on this one? We have some different vocalists on, and anything where you kind of want to expand on this idea, or just
I think
just keep
I
it
don't
for the
think
drummers for now?
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
because a lot of people do guest vocalists and guest guitar players, and maybe I'll have somebody like I'm friends with some iconic guitar players, so it'd be nothing to call them up and say, "Hey man, when you do a
Yeah.
solo," maybe that. But
Okay.
the drummer thing for me was really amazing because I love drums, and it was all these guys that I played on other artists' records with, or like toured with Tico Torres, obviously with Bon
Mhm.
Jovi, Liberty, and I met on the set when we were taping live jams for the Hired Gun documentary. So there's all these little uh, intersecting little situations where, hey, I played with Kenny Aronoff. He's on a track. I can't even count how many records we've played on together by other artists. So that's the thing. When you're in a room with a drummer and you're working on even another artist's songs, you're like, there's a there's a gelling happening, there's a chemistry going on, and then you become pals and exchange phone numbers,
Mhm.
and then saying, "Hey man, when you play drums on my record, it's kind of like, hey, what do you want to get for lunch?" It turns into this like a relationship. So that's why it was really cool. And we did this on Stupid Good Lookings. I had Doug Pinnick, one of my favorite singers on the planet, do a duet with me vocally on a song called "No Woman of Mine," and that's one of my that's a highlight of a career right there. He's just such an amazing personality and an amazing vocalist, and him putting him on your song is kind of like,
Mhm.
wow, what every time I hear it now I get chills. So it's pretty amazing. But yeah, I mean, the elaborating thing is the the elaborating slash collaborating.
Mhm.
It's fun, man. You get to be in a band, like even when he's not with us anymore. Taylor Hawkins, when we put him on a song on the last record, he basically came into the studio, and Taylor, Dan, and I were basically a band for 90 minutes while we changed the arrangement of the song.
Okay.
Taylor's like, hey, let's do this going into the last chorus. And I'm like, yeah, but go completely crazy at the end. And then you do 3 takes of that and you're done. Thanks, man. Next.
Mhm.
It's pretty amazing when you put it in that perspective.
It's cool. I love hearing these stories too. And I think for rock radio last year, like last year rock radio, we saw so many different collaborations that came out. Hailstorm I Prevail did some together, and it was just we had, this we've had Blackstone Cherry do with Killswitch Engage, Jesse from Killswitch, and we've seen a lot more of this collaboration stuff, which has been fun. You don't see it a whole lot in rock and
Yeah.
metal. Now, for all the drummers on this album, did you guys get together with any of these? Were any of these in person where you're together, or was a lot of just we have the internet now and it takes a while to get places
No. If we started recording this back in 2014.
wow,
The first
okay.
song on this record that was recorded was "You Sunk My Battleship" with Brian Tishy, and then the last song that was recorded was November of 2024. So
Okay.
that's 10 years. Like Tosh Peterson, who he's this maniac 23-year-old drummer who's like taking the drum world by storm by playing with all these artists, and then bam, he texts me, goes, "Hey, I'm playing Saturday Night Live with Lady Gaga on Saturday." I'm like, "Okay, well,
Oh my
you've arrived." I mean,
yeah.
we've all arrived at different points in our careers, but it's just those moments are like, I've never played Saturday Night Live. I
Yeah.
almost did, but didn't. That's one of those dream gigs when you're a young player. But so he was the last guy we recorded because it was a new song that I wrote. So it was a 10-year long process because of life.
Mhm.
Um, and when we started recording it, I had my son and I was being dad. And then in 2016, I became a dad for the second time, and with my daughter. And then I was dad again. And then Bon Jovi records and Bon Jovi tours, and tours with some other artists and stuff like that. There's always like a hiccup in your schedule. So I just worked on it when I could. So when it got done, it was amazing. But I did shoot myself in the foot when we're talking about
Okay.
collaborators. When it's drummers, I got so many messages from the mastering guy going, dude, we have to try to make this record sound more cohesive. It's got to sound like the same record. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I know, man. There's like 5 studios, 5 different engineers. But to answer your question, we were all in the room at the same time.
Okay.
Just to create that chemistry, especially with Tommy, like that story with him, and the thing with Liberty. He came in thinking the song would be double time, and I said, no, man, it's halftime. And he goes, oh, well, let me do it like this then, and just nailed this groove at halftime. I was like, oh my God, that's it. So it was kind of like just amazing moments. Me and Dan, we both feel blessed and fortunate to be there while we were tracking all together.
You mentioned, during the mastering or whatever, engineers want it to sound like a cohesive record. Is that something that you really cared about, like in this point when you've got so many different drummers and different styles of drummers and whatnot? Does that mean as much? Do you need to have that cohesion as much, or do you want it to sound like it's a bunch of different works of art?
Well, no, you definitely hear the personality of the drummer. What I'm talking about is, because it was so many different kits and stuff like that, the kick drum and the snare are popping in this song, but not so much in this song. But you want to kind of get them to that where they're popping again. So sometimes it's an EQ thing, sometimes it's a compression thing. So he was talking about stuff like that. You
the technical,
definitely hear the personality of every drummer. Yeah, it was technical. Awesome. I thought, because of my the common denominator is my guitar, my voice, Dan's bass, Dan's background vocals, and he actually sings lead on a song that he wrote on this record to feel better. But yeah, when it comes down to that was like, okay, that's the common denominator. Is that enough? And then once I was handing over mixes, he's like, you got to tweak the drums a little bit so they don't sound so much different than the last song. And I'm like, got it. It was a lot of work, but he really saved the day, because I'm really happy with how it came out.
That's awesome. You mentioned, go ahead.
Mara, he's the guy who mastered the record.
Okay. You mentioned SNL you almost played SNL as a dream gig. I want to ask you, like, at this point in your career, I mean, you've had the chance to do so many different things. What are still some of the dream things for you that you'd love to do?
I don't know if it goes past that. I mean, I played Wembley Stadium with Bon Jovi. That's a dream venue when you're growing up. We've done numerous sold out nights at Madison Square Garden. That's another one. I think there's more people that I'd rather play with than places I'd like to play.
Okay. Who are some of those? I got to ask you then, who are some of those people? Like, who's on the collaboration wish list kind of moving forward? You maybe haven't had the chance to work with. I mean,
there's some people that I don't know if they'll ever play again, but I always thought doing something with Jimmy Page would be pretty amazing. And some of them aren't alive. It would have been really cool to do something with Edward Van Halen, being for me, he changed the whole guitar world. And I saw the first Van Halen show I saw was 1980 Invasion Tour and World Invasion. And that was the Women and Children First record. And I was 14, and it was Toronto Maple Leaf Gardens, and it changed my life. Like that kind of stuff. Maybe, it'd be cool if Alex ever decides he wants to play drums again. I hope he gets my number from somewhere.
There you go. Get him on the next upcoming album. Again, man, Power Right and the Kisser out March 28th. We've got you Thursday morning on the Artist Spotlights with the new track Fake the Day Away. And Phil, since you're on here with me for the first time, I know you got a bunch of stuff to handle today, but I got to ask everybody when they come on for the first time, some of your favorite no skip albums. This used to be a blog post for me when I was at another job, and then when I moved here, it's a question I ask everybody. Some of those favorite no skips, a few, you can give a handful, just a few that are off the top of your head. So those albums you don't skip one song on.
The few off the top of my head are all Van Halen. Van Halen.
Okay.
1, 2, Women and Children, and Fair Warning, and then actually even Diver Down, man. All the Van Halen stuff is amazing. But AC/DC, Highway to Hell, AC/DC, Back in Black, uh, Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell, top to bottom for me, because I was a kid when I got that too. It's the records when you that take you back to your youth. Pyromania by Def Leppard for me is a top to bottom, no skip record. There's a bunch. There you go.
There you go. No, it's good. No, it like I said, it used to be a blog post where, I used to give bands time to actually think about it and whatnot. Then I moved here and started asking some bands, and they're like, all right. I was like, is this something that you think off the top of your head you guys can do? And everyone's like, yeah, of course we can do it. I was like, all right, well, then it'll be fun because it's cool because you see the different generations and the ones and the songs that they go to, the albums that they go to on this, and some that are kind of wild cards that you would never, ever expect. So it's been a really fun question to ask.
Yeah. Oh, wait, there's one more that I got to mention. It's because when I was a kid, I got Cat Scratch Fever by Ted Nugent. And that was a top to bottom for me. I might have been 11.
Okay. That's kind of when I started getting into some more rock and roll stuff. Like I was around 11, 12 years old, kind of when I started getting into some more of that. My parents were probably pulling their hair out and probably wanted to pull mine out and being like, what the hell are you listening to? What are you doing here? So, but no, man, it's been a fun question to ask. I feel like I said, we got you guys on Thursday morning here on QLZ, new record out here in a span of a couple of weeks, and looking forward to hearing more, and appreciate your time, man.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.